So this video goes through some algebra terminology, and you were introduced to some of it in the activity with the algebra tiles. We'll just go through it again a little bit more formally. So variable. So when you worked with the algebra tiles and I said this is an x squared or this is an x, those tiles represented variables. So a variable is just a letter that represents one or more numbers. Every different letter is a different number. So x would be a different number than n, but really x could be anything. It could be any number, and n could be any number. Then you have terms, and terms are numbers, variables, or a combination of some numbers and variables together. And terms are what make up an equation or an expression. And terms are going to be separated by adding or subtracting. So an expression here, for example, 3x plus 2y plus 10, it has a combination of some variables. The variables are x and y. It has some terms. The terms are 3x, 2y, and 10. So this would have 3 terms. When a term has a variable, it also has a coefficient. So if it says 3y, the coefficient would be 3. It tells you how many y's you have. Terms that don't have variables are called constants. And as we talked about in the tiles activity, a constant like plus 3, that never changes. You're always going to have plus 3. But if it said plus 3x, that value could change depending on what x is. So if x is 2, then 3x would be 3 times 2, or 6. If x is 4, then 4x would be 4 times 2, or 8. So those are not constant, whereas this here, plus 7, is constant. So let's go through and figure out the answers to these questions. So how many terms are there? Well, the first thing that I like to do is separate terms and circle or label. So what I do is I circle or separate them. So I can see that there are 3 terms. Now, the part that's tricky is what the terms are. So the first term is 2x. The next term, though, is negative 4y. So that sign belongs with the 4y. It's part of that term. And then the last one is positive 7. Now, in math, we typically don't write a plus sign in front if it's positive, but we have to write a negative sign in front if it's negative. So for these terms, the coefficients then, the first one, the coefficient of that term is 2, and the coefficient of that term then is negative 4. The constant in this case is 7. Now, one thing to be careful of, if I wrote x minus y, for example, there are 2 terms. The 2 terms are x and negative y. So those are the 2 terms. The coefficients, you have to look at that x and think, what's in front of that x? How many x's are there? In math, when there's nothing there, there's actually a 1 there. So x means 1x. So its coefficient is 1, and y, negative y, means negative 1y, so its coefficient is negative 1. So be really, really careful with ones like that. So let's look at some more practice. So what I want you to do is pause the video and then try this question and then restart it and see if you got it right. So to identify terms, again, I like to circle or highlight or identify. That's up to you. So there are 4 terms here. They are 3x squared, 2x, negative 7, and negative 8x. Again, be careful that you include the sign. The coefficients are 3, 2, and negative 8. This negative 7, because it doesn't have a letter, because it doesn't have a variable, is called the constant. And then the variables are x squared and x. So it says circle what is asked for, then check your answer. Again, try this on your own. Pause the video and restart and see if you're right. So it asks you to circle the variables, circle the coefficients, and circle the constants. Again, be careful, make sure that you include the signs. So pause the video, try it, and then see if you're right. So here, the variables are x squared, xy, x, and z cubed. The coefficients are 3, -5, and 4. And the constants are -4 and 9. So double check that you got the signs correct. Here, for example, if you circled the +4, that's okay. +4 and 4 are the same thing. Okay, so let's do some more practice. Again, the most difficult part with algebra terminology is just practicing the language because a lot of it sounds very similar. So again, I would suggest that you try this on your own, pause the video, try it, and then restart and see if you're right. So, how many terms are in this first expression? There are 3. They are -2x squared, 5x, and -8. The variables are x squared and x. The constant is -8, and the coefficients are 2 and 5. The number of constants plus the number of coefficients should equal how many terms you wrote out. In this one, there are 2 terms. They are 3y and 4. The variable is y, the constant is 4, and the coefficient is 3. In this one, be careful. Even though there's 3 letters, there's actually only one term. The term is -3abc. The variables are a, b, and c. In this case, there is no constant, so you either put an x, or put 0, or put none. Any of those would be acceptable. Don't leave it blank. If you leave it blank, I'm going to think you didn't know. And then the coefficient would be -3. So check to see if you got those correct. So we're going to do a few more new words to you. So polynomial just means multiple terms. Monomial means one term. Mono means one, or like unicycle or a monocle. That's an I thing with only one I. Monomial is one, so monomial, one term. Polynomial would be more than one term, and we have some special names. So if it has 2, exactly 2, we call it a binomial. Like bicycle has 2 wheels, binomial, 2 terms. 3 terms is called a trinomial. Same thing, tricycle, 3, trinomial or triangle, 3. Then anything more than 3, call it a polynomial. So let's see if you can practice that. Again, I would suggest that you pause the video, give these a try, and then restart the video. So monomials, we're looking for things with only one term, which means they don't have any plus or minus signs. So that one, it's not about how many letters it has, it's about how many terms it has. That one's binomial, that one's a binomial, and then trinomial, trinomial, and I missed that binomial. So one thing that you want to notice in this column, in this column here, there are no plus or minus signs. Here, there is one plus or minus sign. And here, there are 2 plus or minus signs. That's just something to kind of notice and keep in mind when you have, when you're trying to identify how many terms something has.